A mom messaged me saying, Ankita, my sweetest 4-year-old suddenly started saying, that's stupid, to everything at home. And I know exactly which friend my child has picked that up from. Sounds familiar? I had worked with a family whose 7-year-old suddenly started to use racial slangs that he had learned from a classmate. And parents were obviously shocked and obviously concerned. In fact, I had once coached a parent whose child started hoarding toys and refusing to share after joining a new playgroup. Hey there, I'm Ankita. Welcome back to my channel where we blend Montessori, neuroscience, music, and positive parenting to help you follow your amazing child from day one to forever. Today, we're talking about something so many parents ask me about. Just last week, a mom messaged me saying, Ankita, my sweetest 4-year-old suddenly started saying, that's stupid, to everything at home. And I know exactly which friend my child has picked that up from. Sounds familiar? If you've noticed your child picking up new words, behaviors, new attitudes from their friends, parents, trust me, you're not alone. This peer-to-peer influence starts surprisingly early. In fact, it can even start in toddlerhood. And trust me, it really ramps up during those preschool years, going up till 3rd or 4th grade. But here's the thing about peer influence. It isn't inherently good or bad. It's actually a natural and necessary part of your child's development. Let's talk about what's happening in your child's brain between the ages of 3 to 8 years. Children are in what neuroscientists call a social sensitive period. This is a period where their brains are literally wired to absorb and mimic the behaviors of all the people they see around them in family and in social groups. So it's like they have this superpower of observation and they end up absorbing everything that they see. And that also kind of helps them understand how they belong and where they belong. So this makes perfect evolutionary sense. So when it comes to our children, they need to quickly learn the rules and behaviors of their own tribe, which kind of helps them survive. So they start mimicking those behaviors. So what does this look like? Today, this shows up in your preschooler who suddenly refuses to wear anything but blue because that's what their friend Kiara likes. Or this could mean that your first grader is suddenly developing an interest in dinosaurs after playing with the dinosaur-loving child on a play date. Research actually shows that these peer-to-peer relationships help children develop crucial life skills. Children are learning negotiation when they are deciding who gets to play in the playground swing. They practice empathy when, let's say, a friend falls down and they all figure out who's going to help them. They also learn cooperation when, let's say, they are building a block together with Legos or, with magnetiles. But I totally get the worry. What about when your child comes home saying, I hate you? Or they say that I don't want to live with you anymore. I don't want you to be my mom. Or when they suddenly refuse to even try new foods because their favorite friend says broccoli is yucky. So let me share a story from my own experience. I had in the past worked with a family whose Montessori Goa child started excluding other children from play after joining a new playgroup. His parents were mortified. But rather than panicking, we decided, okay, let's now use the situation as an opportunity to reinforce family values, and their family values were about kindness. So they said, okay, let's talk about kindness and help the child understand the social dynamics at play. Young children can experience different types of peer influence. There is a lot of positive stuff also when it comes to peer influence. For example, the child might start saying please, the child might start eating certain foods, the child might start playing particularly with other groups of friends, just imitating their other friends. Or they become braver about trying the slide, they become braver about maybe working with materials after they've seen their friend do it. And then there is the challenging influence. For example, when they experiment with words like stupid, I hate you, or when, of course, they start negotiating for toys or treats because that's what their friends get at home. And parents, I understand that's hard. Okay, so don't forget the invisible influences that can be harder to spot changes in how children solve their problems, their confidence levels, or how they approach new situations. From a Montessori perspective, this is what we call the social plane of development. Maria Montessori observed that around 3 years of age, children start to become intensely interested in their social worlds. Their absorbent mind, this amazing capacity that it has, it starts to take in everything just by being in their environment. And they really do start focusing more on peers and less exclusively from adults, which means at that point your children are learning more from other children than they could be by looking at you. That's actually why Maria Montessori used mixed age groupings in the classroom, which basically gives younger children a chance to observe and learn from slightly older children and peers because they are all in the same environment. So older children are reinforcing their knowledge by helping the younger ones, and this really creates a beautiful cycle of modeling and learning. So what can you do as a parent? Okay, the first thing is to not panic. Remember that your influence will still outweigh peer influence at this age, even if it doesn't always feel that way. All right, start by creating a very strong family culture. When children know what your family values are, and they could be kindness, they could be honesty, they could be respect, empathy, then they know the boundary. They know that they have a framework in which they can evaluate their behavior and the behaviors that they see in other people. For example, this is something that happened. My daughter told her friend one of the days that in our family, we don't talk about people's bodies like that. You know, when the other friend was making comments about someone else's appearances. So your children will be able to pick up what's right and wrong and make their own decisions if you've provided them that framework, right? Try using observation rather than judgment. You can always tell your children, I noticed that you learned this new word from Karan. What do you think it means, right? And just open up a conversation with your child rather than shutting it down, because that could be really helpful. You can also help develop their critical skills with questions like, how did you feel when you said that? Or how did you feel when your friend was saying that to another friend? You could always ask them, how do you think it made your brother feel when you use such words, right? So you can teach them to evaluate behaviors against their own internal compass, which can be really powerful, which is what you want them to learn. Strengthening your connection is crucial too. When children feel securely attached to you, that is when they are likely to adopt your values, even when they are very happy to explore peer-to-peer relationships. So what can you do with your children? Of course, you can spend special time together, which is one-on-one connection time, which is 10 minutes of undivided time that you can spend with your child daily to keep on layering that block of connection. You can be thoughtful about social environments whenever you can. You have to notice which friendships are really bringing out the best in your child. You, of course, don't have to control who your child is playing with. But of course, you can create more opportunities for interactions with children who have a positive response on your child. Music and movement can also be a very powerful tool to reinforce the values. We've created a really silly friendship song in our home, and this talks really about kind words, kind actions. They love it because they're singing it, and it's kind of like a gentle reminder of how we are supposed to treat others and how we are supposed to also be kind to ourselves. Now, what about when your child brings home something truly concerning? It could be maybe a really aggressive physical behavior. It could be discriminatory language. It could be sudden secretive or excluding behaviors that you definitely don't want your child to have. Now, what do you do then? Because they may worry you deeply. These situations deserve special attention. I had worked with a family whose 7-year-old suddenly started to use racial slangs that he had learned from a classmate. And parents were obviously shocked and obviously concerned. So here's what we did with that child. And this is exactly what you can do when you face these kind of similar situations. First, you have to take a deep breath. You have to respond rather than react. Your calm response is going to teach your child how to handle these big emotions, right? So you can clearly say something like, that word is hurtful to many people in our family. In our family, we don't use words that hurt others, right? You can just lay it out there that we don't do this in our family. Create a private moment to discuss that particular behavior. Young children may not often understand the impact of what they're repeating. They might not understand that their language could be hurtful to others. So we need to talk about it with them. You can use simple age-appropriate explanations, which is that word has been used to make people feel bad about who they are. And those words can cause real pain. You have to tell your child. Use storytelling to build empathy, right? Children are in general going to respond better to stories than lectures. And of course, use books. You can share age-appropriate books that addresses the specific issue that you are seeing. And in case your child has picked up behaviors like hitting, exclusion, then there is a very beautiful book called Hands Are Not For Hitting, and there's another beautiful book called The Invisible Boy. These books, when you read over and over again, I hope opens up meaningful conversations. And of course, role play alternative responses. For example, next time you feel frustrated with your friend, instead of pushing, here's what you can say: I need you to practice it with me. I need space. Or come find me. So you're going to have to create situations where you give your child chances to practice this together. Connect with the school or the center provider whenever appropriate, wherever your child is picking up these behaviors, and at least address them. And a gentle conversation with the stakeholders will also help you understand the broader context of what is really going on in that space. And it will ensure that there is a consistent messaging that's going to the child. For particularly persistent behaviors, you can try the replacement behavior technique. Now, what is replacement behavior technique? You have to identify what the need is. There is a certain behavior that is fulfilling, let's say, attention, power, excitement. And then you have to offer acceptable alternatives that are going to basically meet the same need in the child. Okay? Sometimes you may have to limit certain play dates or social situations temporarily when you are working through a particular influence. This isn't about isolating your child, but about creating a space for your child to reinforce your family values before you go ahead and reintroduce challenging social dynamics to your child. Remember the 3R approach for serious concerns? You have to recognize the influence, you have to respond with empathy and limits, and then last, you have to redirect to values aligned behavior. If you remember this 3R framework, it can really help you stay consistent when you're facing difficult peer influences. In fact, I had once coached a parent whose child started hoarding toys and refusing to share after joining a new playgroup. What we did with this child is we created a practice game at home, which was a sharing game, and we celebrated moments of generosity and arranged play dates with children who just modeled healthy sharing behaviors. And it was truly game-changing because within the weeks, the hoarding behavior had completely stopped, and the child started integrating both positive peer influence and family values. So I would just say, parents, you have to trust your instincts. You know your child best. You know if a particular friendship or social situation is bringing out consistently good behavior in your child, or is it bringing out behavior that concerns you. It's okay to be more directive while your child develops stronger internal compass and filters. If you find this video helpful, please do hit the subscribe button. Tap on the notification bell so you don't miss the next week's video. And we're going to talk more about social interactions, more about challenging situations. And I would love to hear from you. So drop me a comment below and let me know what you did when you faced a similar situation.